I'm Ann with Grounded Earth Farm in Crown Point, Indiana. This is our 4th year farming, so we're definitely still beginners. We purchased this farm 5 years ago. It was not an operating farm at the time. It's an urban homestead or suburban homestead, and we've worked to slowly convert the turf grass into a fertile soil for our market garden farm. Cover cropping is really important to us, especially living in Crown Point. We recently found out that Crown Point's clay reads out as almost the same PSI as concrete. We deal with a ton of compaction. And not only that, our farm is on hilly ground, so we deal with a lot of erosion and wind too. Cover cropping is helping us address all of these issues with maintaining and building our organic matter, addressing compaction, and we're excited to learn more about different cover crops that allow us to use the tools that we have as a small market garden farm, an urban farmstead with limited implements and tools.
Why is this important for us to have nutrient-dense soil? Well, if your soil is nutrient-dense with all the minerals and from the soil, and all the vitamins and nutrients, that's what goes into your plant. So let's say, for instance, you have a tomato and your soil is not nutrient-dense, or your soil is not up to par with your pH levels and magnesium, your sodium, and everything that goes in your soil. You get that tomato and you wonder why there's all kinds of little cracks in your tomatoes. Your tomatoes are not coming out pretty and red like they should. That's important for you to have nutrient-dense soil to be able to do that. So that's why we want to have nutrient-dense soil with more vitamins and minerals that makes your plants better. And because we grow organic, because we compost out here, if you have nutrient-dense soil, that makes everything just so much more fantastic. And now those nutrients are now going into your body as you eat them. We all know that food is health. So if you have a healthy tomato, a healthy cucumber, a healthy lettuce, or healthy greens, that's what you'll be eating.
So we're here today because we've been working closely with 2 farms here in Lake County, Indiana. One of them is called Grounded Earth Farms and the other one is called Faith Farms. And we've been working closely with these farmers, Ann Massey and Frida Graves, to have them plant cover crops. We've been working with them, recommending specific cover crops to plant that can apply to what they had planted previously and what they will be planting next. Our mission for the Urban Soil Health Program is to promote soil health in Indiana's urban and small-scale agricultural land. And when we talk about soil health, we talk about the continued capacity of that soil to function as a healthy living ecosystem. So not just like as a substrate for crops to grow, but also as an ecosystem where those organisms that live in the soil support the plant growth. One of the things that we use to guide our soil health is the soil health principles, and there are 4 soil health principles. 3 of them involve maximizing, so maximize soil cover either by plants growing or mulching, maximizing plant biodiversity, maximizing continuous living roots. So if you're done with one crop, you plant the next one or plant a cover crop to keep plants growing in that soil. And the 4th principle, which involves minimizing disturbance. Now the caveat for all these soil health principles is that it's as much as we can. So as much as the operation allows, and as much as the farmer is ready.
So in these beds we planted dwarf Siberian kale seed as a cover crop. We used a cheap little Earthway precision seeder and ran pretty intensively down each row, about 8 to 10 passes. And it germinated really well, and we haven't had a whole lot of pest pressure with it. You can see next to me, I do have a black tarp out that's killing off some of the old beds, the weed seed that had germinated during beets being planted in there. Next to it is a bed that's been recently harvested that hasn't been tarped yet and needs some care. But what we found with beds that have already been in existence, we've already done some work to build the organic matter, they've taken the cover crops really well. So one thing as a farmer, I'm constantly trying to minimize things that don't make me money and maximize things that do. And one of the great things about this kale as a cover crop is that it's also edible, and it's also something that I can harvest and sell for profit. A lot of cover crops are not edible, are not able to be cash crops. So it's nice to work this into your rotation so you feel like you're still able to get some profitability out of your field while it's under cover. The cover crop, as you'll see in our other plot, is a new plot, so it'll have some issues with weeds. It's going to have some issues with not having very good tilth. It's not extremely crumbly because we haven't worked in it yet, but we know that within a year or two of doing this regimen of cover cropping and planting using low-till methods, that we will get to a point where we'll have this nice of germination and coverage with our cover crop in that plot.
And right now we've seen the growth in 1 month and how it went, which is excellent. I mean, for 1 month growth. We noted with the ground cover some of the things that I've learned in the process, which is our first year, so it was an experiment for us. I've learned in the process that it helps your soil with nutrients. It makes it more nutrient dense, that way you have a better growing process and more nutrients in your vegetables, because if you have nutrients in the soil, what does it go up to? The root of the vegetable, and it goes up to the vegetable. So over here we have oats and rye, and this is what our process has looked like in 1 month growth, which is excellent. And it also shows that we started off with some good soil, but we're going to even add better soil. Now, I also learned that you can compost this back into your soil after the growth period is over for next year's growth, which is another thing that we need. We have nutrient-dense soil, better vegetables, since we grow organically, better pollinators, better everything for your vegetables. So that's what I've learned in the process, and I'm so happy that we got into this process and we're now learning more and more. As for next year, I think that we will try and do this whole house with ground cover and outside the whole areas instead of doing just one area. Because it was an experiment, that's why we only started in this one spot.
This experience has been wonderful for me as a beginning farmer. It always astonishes me that you're considered a beginning farmer from 0 to 10 years. I mean, even at 10 years, you're still a beginner. And even if you've been farming for 20 years growing potatoes, you still have grown potatoes only 20 times. It takes so much support and effort to wrap your head around all of the different variables that it takes to be a good farmer. The first several years of farming, I never even touched cover crops because it was so overwhelming to me to understand what was good to pick, how I could apply it, all the little things to make sure you're doing right by your farm. And so this experience has really helped break down that mental barrier for me and understanding that cover crops really can be an essential tool in building a farm that is more efficient. You're growing healthier crops, and you're reducing your workload by using cover crops.